Look at Tesla stock there. I don't think I've seen anything more beautiful than that in my life before. Tesla breaking out, or at least about to. Now, what's really telling about today is Tesla is one of the outperformers, okay? It's not a great day for most areas of this market. We'll take a look in just a moment, but Tesla's a real outperformer. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of your Tesla stock breaking news, what's happening today, why is the stock going up, and much more. We'll talk about broader markets and what's happening there as well. I think you have a bit of a, situation where the markets are pressuring the government a little bit, and we'll talk about that in today's video as well. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and check that link out down below in the description of today's episode if you guys want to come join the trading community. And oh, boom, let's turn on those lights, baby. Lights, camera, action. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with your first piece of news today. Deutsche Bank has raised its Tesla price target to $470 from $440. They maintained their buy rating. This comes right before the most important event in Tesla's history. And if you don't know, that is the shareholder meeting on November 6th, which is 3 days from now, which is on Thursday. The Tesla Cybercab is on display in China for the first time. This is at the International Import Expo in Shanghai, which starts tomorrow. Expect Tesla's booth to be packed. Waymo has announced that they will be launching robotaxi services in Las Vegas, Detroit, and San Diego starting next year. They say, quote, "We've regularly tested in Detroit during winter weather to develop our capabilities in snow and ice. We've made great strides in our efforts to operate in heavier snow, including testing in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and look forward to the 6th generation Waymo driver navigating Detroit streets this winter." And yeah, that's, totally different fish to fry if you're operating in Vegas, or you're operating in Phoenix, or you're operating in Los Angeles versus Detroit. I live in Michigan, and while you don't get nearly as much snow as we used to, like when I was a child, there was snow on the ground all winter and it melted in March or May, and boom, then you started spring, then you had summer, then you had fall, then you had winter again. Nowadays, you only get a couple snowstorms, and then the snow is going to melt. So it shouldn't be too difficult to operate in Michigan, to operate in Detroit. But this is also a positive for Tesla. Again, the market is so early and large for autonomous ride-hailing that, what's good for one is good for all. So this is good news for Tesla. And some people have a difficulty understanding this, but I think the best comparable is comparing what you had with Intel and AMD. Intel dominated the CPU market. AMD came along and started to eat market share. So Intel was clearly at a disadvantage at that point. Well, today, there's no real clear winner that dominates a vast majority of the markets in autonomous ride-hailing, because even Waymo, there's very little penetration, okay? So it's everyone's market to gain at this point. Here you can see that many Cybertrucks have started arriving in South Korea, with first deliveries that are expected to start soon, making it the first international Cybertruck deliveries. Now, Samsung SDI has reportedly reached an agreement with Tesla to supply more than $2.1 billion worth of energy storage system batteries to Tesla over 3 years, according to the Korea Economic Daily. Tesla will allow owners to gift FSD supervised subscriptions by next month. Now, we can also see today Tesla's Model Y standard production officially started at Giga Berlin. Dan Ives says that Tesla investors are likely to approve Elon's $1 trillion pay plan. Now, Yemen on X says Tesla is kicking off Wave 3, the strongest leg of the move. The near-term target sits around $520, with the broader structure still pointing higher towards the $580 to $600 range. Momentum looks ready to accelerate. This is where trends usually go parabolic, and that's essentially the point here, okay? look at Tesla. This thing looks beautiful. Okay, now we do want to see an ultimate close above the high of the day, which was $470.75. You want to get above that and close above that. $470.75 today. The stock is currently just under $469 per share. So I'm sure we'll be able to close above that. But if you can close above $470.75, it's looking quite aggressive to the upside at this point. I mean, there's not a lot holding Tesla back. And honestly, you can make the argument that for years now, a lot of the news at Tesla has been so heavily discounted because Elon is the guy, right? If Elon were to up and leave Tesla on random or at some point in the future, like, the stock would collapse. So it's no surprise why Tesla is, $468 when the all-time high was back in late 2024. We've had a CEO that is not under contract. Wall Street has really just operated under the assumption that Elon would not leave Tesla. But when we guarantee that Elon will stay at Tesla, you start to price in a lot more good things for Tesla stock in the future. And that's what starts this Thursday. And that's why I'm calling for a 10 to 20% rally. We talked about in the last video, the options market is pricing in about an 8% move. So you're actually not pricing in that big of a move relative to how big the catalyst is this week. So you've already moved over 2.5% of what was priced in, about 8%. It's looking really good. The RSI even is at 60. So there's plenty of room to rally from that metric as well. Now, Morgan Stanley says that Tesla stock needs Elon's $1 trillion pay plan. They say it's bullish for shareholders. And again, honestly, like you need that to pass. If it doesn't pass, we're going to be up shit's creek. Okay. Tesla stock would collapse. Now, there's a 95+% probability on betting markets like Kalshi and Poly market. So, who's not going to vote for this? You have to be a real hater to not vote for this package. In option activity today for Tesla stock, you're definitely seeing more of it. You have 113 different trades today, totaling $423 million with a positive order value of 57%. So definitely a lot more activity and looks pretty neutral overall, but we'll see where the numbers are later on tonight once we get the final activity for the day today. Now, it does look like short sellers are covering about 42,000 shares, but after Thursday, when the package is approved, that's when you could really see a dramatic rise in shorts covering on short positions, because at that point, a big hangover is lifted from the stock. Oh, and yeah, there's 72.62 million shares currently sold short. Just compare that to the volume that you're seeing on any given day. It's between 60 and 80 million is pretty typical over the past week. What do you think happens if 10 million shares want to cover, or 5 million shares want to cover after Thursday? It's going to lead into a pretty aggressive squeeze to the upside. It's going to lead you well into the 500s. Now, if we take a look at the broader markets today, it's really a mixed bag across the board as far as an index level. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.4%. S&P 500 is up 0.33%. NASDAQ is up 0.71%. Russell 2000 is down 0.68%. So this is, again, another top-heavy market where Wall Street, they're comfortable buying the Mag 7 stocks. They're comfortable buying the big dogs. They're a lot less comfortable buying the smaller cap names. Microsoft's basically flat today. Apple's down 0.5%. Google's up 1/3%. Tesla's up 2.5%. Amazon up almost 5% today. What about Nvidia? A fan favorite of some. Nvidia, man, this thing hates me. Nvidia up almost 4% today. Okay, so this is really a top-heavy market. And again, If you look at the S&P is up 1/3 of 1% today. The equal weight S&P is down 0.41% today. So that just shows you, again, how top heavy of a day like today actually is. Something we've also been monitoring quite a bit is the S&P equal weight volatility. So this is the VIX EQ. It's still sitting at 40, which over the past year, the high was 70 and the low was about 31. So you recently hit a high of almost 45. So you've come down a little bit, but volatility in single stocks is still pretty extreme, which, again, as that volatility comes down to more of a normal level, you're likely to see stocks actually do quite well. But honestly, in my personal opinion, I think Wall Street right now is kind of trying to pressure the government to reopen. I think Wall Street really does not like the government being shut down at this point, and they're voting with their money, okay? You see this happen in bond markets a lot, right? They're called bond vigilantes. Now, I can make a 20-minute long video on the history of bond vigilantes, who coined it, and why it's considered a thing. But long story short is investors, if they don't like certain things, they will just sell stocks to incite change, right? It's like nothing is better at changing a situation than putting some money on it, right? Talk is cheap, but when you start to see your stocks perform poorly, or bonds, as the case of bond vigilantes, but they're stock vigilantes, that's a good way to incite change. Okay, so I think there's a little bit of that going on right now. Wall Street is just throwing a little bit of a tantrum over the government still being shut down. I understand why, from an institutional perspective, they consider the BLS data like gold. I consider it like silver at best, okay? I don't think BLS data is very good at all. I think company earnings are a much better way of evaluating the economy and how things are out there. And what we've heard from earnings is things are really good. I mean, they could be better. Some areas are not as good. Okay, there's still that discrepancy between value-oriented companies are doing better than premium-oriented companies. But on aggregate, companies are beating. They're raising forecast. Credit card companies, banks, loan providers, they're all saying the economy's pretty much unchanged. It's been not great on the low side of the consumer and really good on the high side of the consumer. That is still happening. Nothing has changed. But Wall Street, they're a little nervous because they view BLS data as critical for their decision-making abilities. And I think people are just really upset at the government still being shut down. So once that clears, once we get the government that reopens again, I believe you're in for some pretty significant upside in this market. I mean, let's be honest. The Fed last week was bullish. Trump lowering tariffs on China was bullish. The NASDAQ was down 1.5% after that happened. That just shows you how irrational this market is right now. And we've had Mag 7 that all beat on earnings and raised AI CapEx budgets. Okay, the last thing I think we really want is the government reopening. That could happen tomorrow. Okay, there's a lot of speculation that the government will reopen either Wednesday or Thursday. Well, so technically not tomorrow, but on Wednesday. We do have some earnings today in after hours as well to be on the lookout for. Palantir, one of the biggest ones, reporting this week. Hims and Hers, Novitas, Goodyear, Fabrinet, Clorox, Sarepta, and Realty Income, as well as Diamondback Energy report today in after hours. Tomorrow, pre-market, Uber, Shopify, Spotify, Pfizer, BP, Ferrari, Norwegian Cruise Line, and Hut 8. And then tomorrow, you have AMD, Arista, Supermicro, Beyond Meat, Marathon, Kinross, Upstart, Axon, and Pinterest. And then later on throughout the week, you have other big names like ARM and AppLovin and Robinhood and McDonald's, Recursion, DraftKings, the Trade Desk. So, we still have a lot of earnings coming out. Just the big ones that move the headline S&P have all come out, and they've all been better than expected, which, there's likely nothing to fear in earnings beyond Mag 7 either. We did have some Fed comments today, so I will read you some of the more important ones. Fed Daily says it would be unfortunate to get inflation to 2% at the cost of millions of jobs. So that actually sounds kind of dovish towards cutting rates. Fed Daily says that labor market slack is rising. Fed Daily says there's more vulnerabilities now in spending data given the softening of the labor market. Fed Daily says if you wait for the job market report to tell you if the labor market is weak, you're already behind. Now, the U.S. government will use $4.65 billion in emergency funds to pay partial November SNAP benefits during the government shutdown, covering part of the usual $8 billion monthly for 42 million people. Officials warn some states could face weeks-long delays in distributing payments. GoFundMe CEO has said the economy is so bad that more of his customers are crowdfunding just to pay for their groceries. Per Fortune. Again, this is what's been happening, okay? Some of this parts of this economy and consumers, lower income guys, are really struggling. Higher income individuals are doing really well. It's been this way for a long time, but I think the more or longer the government is shut down, the more people are getting nervous about what kind of damage this could be doing to the economy. And that's specifically why you're seeing a lot of the small cap areas just getting absolutely decimated. Today is another decimation in the small caps. And that's because if you're a fund manager and you have to stay invested in this market, if there is concerns about the economy, you're going to sell small caps and you're going to go long in the Mag 7 names that are more predictable, that are, larger companies, essentially too big to fail. Like, that's where you would want to allocate your money if you had to be invested. And that's what you're seeing right now. Fed Daily says we have less information than we used to, but we can still make a decision as needed. Daily says she is open-minded on December rate cuts, says that 50 basis points of cuts this year makes the Fed better positioned, and she says we need to take or make decisions that balance risks. U.S. House Speaker Johnson says we're mindful that time is running out on the stopgap bill. And Johnson says he's praying that elections change the stopgap talks this week. Fed Goolsbee says he is cautious about layoff data. Goolsbee says the hiring rate is low, one of the economy's weakest factors, and Goolsbee says it's unusual to have low hiring and low firing in the economy. Fed Goolsbee said earlier this morning that he is not decided for what happens at the next Fed meeting. The threshold for cutting rates is higher than the last two Fed meetings. Fed Goolsbee says that he is uneasy with front-loading rate cuts. The S&P Global Manufacturing PMI's final numbers for October came in today at 52.5, coming in higher than last month's 52.0, beating estimates of 52.2. Now, ISM Manufacturing PMIs came in at 48.7, the estimate's 49.5. Manufacturing employment came in at 46.0, beating last month and beating estimates of 45.4. ISM Manufacturing new orders came in at 49.4, beating estimates of 49.2 and coming in higher than last month. And manufacturing prices came in at 58.0. Missing expectations of 61.7 and coming in lower than last month at 61.9. So this is actually much better than expected, numbers. Now, we do have some more data throughout the week. We are going to get these services PMIs numbers on Wednesday, which is going to be much more important since manufacturing is only about 20% of the economy. Services is about 80%. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. It's, again, really a mixed bag out there, and I think there's a lot of concerns and pressures over the government still being shut down, stock market vigilantes, if you will, and it makes sense why Wall Street is selling the riskier stocks, the small caps, and going into mega caps, because again, if you're going to have a recession, if you're going to have even, an economy that continues to weaken in general, you would want to own the large caps, right? They're going to be able to do much better than the small caps. And that's what you're seeing right now. So let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comment section. How are you investing in this turbulent market? I would love to know the stocks that you are buying right now. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check that link out down below in the description of today's episode if you guys want to come join the trading community. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.